Welcome everyone. In this Synergy 2023 video entitled Your Tax Preparation Workflow, Ported to the Cloud, Now Possible and Easy with OnView, we'll be walking through the key features that are included in OnView T1, our professional cloud-based tax application. We believe that armed with information in this video, you'll be successfully up and running with OnView T1 this coming tax season. I'm Karl Your, and I'm the lead in user research and design for TR Tax and Accounting Canada. So on the agenda, first, applying the knowledge that you already have. So for many of you here at Synergy, you have a DT Max working knowledge and background and experience. You'll see that for most tasks, when you're accomplishing them in OnView Tax, you'll be able to simply just apply the DT Max knowledge that you already have. And what happens if you're not a DT Max user? Say you're a new recruit in your firm, you'll see that OnView Tax is user-friendly and easy to learn. Next, we'll take a look at what's it like preparing tax returns on the cloud. So preparing and submitting, how is the experience different when compared to a desktop-based application? And next, it's what to keep in mind when migrating tax data from DT Max into OnView Tax. And after that, I'll talk about how you can just get started using OnView Tax. You know, the steps are easy. And if you happen to be someone who prefers to have a ramp-up session before getting started, I'll talk about how those sessions will happen. New this year, we will have hands-on ramp-up sessions. These sessions will take place in January. They're called OnView Tax Days, and I'll briefly talk about those as well. And lastly, I'll talk about the new features that we're working on now that will be available in OnView Tax starting January 2024. First, applying what you already know and learning new things easily. So you'll see that the intuitive aspects of DT Max are preserved in OnView Tax. All of the data is captured on one page through an interface like DT Max's keyword system. We'll do some mock data entry in a second. But first, I would like to talk about the second point that's preserved from DT Max, and that is the reference data, or the data that you want to copy, that's placed side by side with the data entry. How are these two aspects enhanced in OnView Tax? Firstly, the data entry is presented in plain language. So not only just displayed, but also you'll be able to search for most things in plain language. You don't need to remember the technical term for keywords. And that also applies to NAICS codes when you're searching. So for example, here we could see that I type a term and OnView Tax brings me back, relevant search results. And when it comes to the side-by-side display, you'll see that we have buttons next to each data group, and those buttons are used to copy data into the data entry. That makes it easier. You don't need to remember how to, select rows using the keyboard, for example. And maybe even more importantly, sometimes the data that's presented on the side-by-side display is not correctly aligned with the data entry. We now have a realignment tool in OnView Tax, which allows you to realign the data correctly vis-a-vis the data entry and then do the copying. And there's actually one more aspect from DT Max that's preserved. It's a bit more subtle. And it's the fact that, as we know, the DT Max data entry is presented in a narrow window, which allows you to reduce the DT Max window size and open up another application on your monitor, for example, a PDF viewer. That is also doable in OnView Tax. So OnView Tax runs on a web browser, and I can just reduce the width of my web browser, and the data entry will be presented in a narrow format. And that allows me to open a PDF on the side, and I can just do some manual copying into my data entry, something that we all have to do. And in this case, where I'm copying amounts, you can see that what's nice is that anything that's not part of the amount, such as like the CAD indication, is ignored in OnView Tax when I'm pasting. It's also worthwhile mentioning that for important actions, keyboard shortcuts are preserved in Onvio Tax. For example, when you want to add another instance of a data entry, row or group. Next, what's it like preparing returns on the cloud? As mentioned, Onvio Tax runs on a web browser using highly secure servers. So there's no installation that's required and there's no database maintenance that's needed. The servers are secure, they're AWS, Amazon provided servers. Because we run a web browser, multiple client projects can be opened at the same time. So for example, here we have the 2020 tax year project for a client open, the 2021 in another browser tab, and the 2022 yet in another browser tab. I could have also opened the spouse's data on another browser tab and a dependents and so on and so on. Sometimes we need to do that. So of course, this is in addition to being able to do the side-by-side display that I mentioned briefly earlier. And actually, this also applies to the area from which we launch our tax projects. So in Onvio Tax, tax files are called tax projects, and you launch them from this area here, which is called the projects grid. And as you can see, I have here 2022 tax year projects. If I want to add 2021, it's really just a checkbox click. And then if I want to remove the 2022, I click on the related filter checkbox and I remove the 2022. And another aspect that comes with the cloud-based experience is are the client documents being a click away. So as you know from DTMax, clients are encouraged to share documents with you using Onvio Documents. Now, working completely in Onvio, when you're preparing your tax return, the shortcut button to client documents is presented on every single one of the Onvio Tax pages. Next is the fact that refresh for certain aspects happens automatically in Onvio Tax. So for example, for e-signature confirmation, if you send the request to your client and they sign, you'll get an email. Now that is also part of the DTMax workflow. In Onvio Tax, what will also happen is that when you open that client back in Onvio Tax, and as soon as you land in the project properties page, you'll see that it's indicated that the T1, for example, is already signed. So from that point onwards, you can just go and file the T1. There's no need to go in the e-signature window and ask for an update before being able to file. The last point I'll talk about is about internet speed and connection problems. So sometimes internet is slow and it might disconnect altogether. For example, when there's high traffic or if there's a server drop. And as you know, depending on when the disconnect occurs, you could lose a piece of data that you just happened to type in. So it's good to know that, one, Onvio detects disconnects and warns you via a pop-up. And in the pop-up asks you to refresh to get you back to where you were. And two, during the course of last year, we were able to significantly reduce the chances of data not being saved during a disconnect. And if something does get lost, it's usually the last piece of data that you just entered, which is why the pop-up reminds you to check that last piece of data that you entered after you refresh. Migrating the tax data of your existing clients from DTMax to Onvio Tax. So migration involves importing client information as well as their tax data from DTMax into Onvio Tax. So this is done by our team. And at a high level, the steps are as follows. First, from your end, you'll export from your client list in DTMax a set of clients that you want to work in Onvio Tax. Second, we'll grab that extract. We'll show you how you can share it with us in a secure fashion, and we will convert that data into Onvio format. Afterwards, we'll temporarily access your Onvio account to place the converted files into your Onvio project grid. So the project grid is the page that I showed you earlier on. We'll notify you, you'll log in and you'll see that you have, for example, 2022 tax year projects available for you to take a look at. You could open and take a look at them and validate the data, but we've already done that for you. So really it's just a matter of selecting the files that you're going to work with in the project grid and clicking on a button that's called Generate Next, and that will create the 2023 tax year projects, and you're good to start preparing tax returns. We ask that you provide us extracts with 30 to 50 clients at a time. That will allow us to convert the client files that you gave us and give them back to you and validate them in a timely fashion. Once you're done filing those clients in Envio Tax or close to being done, you'll give us another set of 30 to 50 clients and we'll move forward so on. Now, it should be mentioned that you don't need to wait until we are done migrating your tax files to get started with Envio Tax. You can always use Envio Tax with brand new clients that are not in your database at the moment. And if you happen to be new to creating DTMax extract files, we have support videos for those, which we will share with you. And we can also meet remotely and we'll show you how to do the extract live. So this brings me to how you can start using Envio Tax T1 or how you can register to a ramp-up session. So if you feel like you're ready to get started using Envio Tax to prepare returns and file them, it's easy to get started. This season, Envio Tax is free for firms who already have an Envio firm management and a DTMax license. You just let us know that you're ready and we activate your Envio Tax on your Envio firm. If you have questions about how to get something specific done, we have a resource site with documentation and videos, which are easy to follow, and will also be available via email to provide support. And if need be, we can meet online remotely via a Teams or Zoom session. So here's the resource site for reference. It has introductory material, documentation, and PowerPoints about Envio Tax. That also covers specific subjects such as migration from DTMax to the cloud, i.e. what you would need to do from your end. So you simply just click on the item that you need, it opens it up, and then you can either follow along the PDF or the video. It's good to know that during the previous season, a third of the firms who onboarded to Envio Tax did so using a self-paced manner. Now, if you prefer to have a wrap-up session before getting started, the wrap-up sessions are one-on-one, meaning it would be a couple of people from my team on a remote call with a couple of people from your firm. And during that call, we'll go over how to accomplish typical tasks related to tax preparation and filing in Envio Tax. New this season, the wrap-up sessions will be hands-on, and these wrap-up sessions are slated to occur in January for a 2-week period. They're called Envio Tax Days, and during those sessions, you'll use a test Envio Tax account, and you will be able to follow us along as we, do typical tax preparation use cases. But of course, with this, the email support is also included throughout the season if need be, as well as remote follow-up sessions if needed. And if during the season we see that there's still spots available to get onboarded to Envio Tax, we will open up more ramp-up sessions to register to. So next, we're going to talk about the new features and improvements that we're going to bring to Envio Tax this coming tax season. First is going to be the comparative summary table, which is also called the historical summary page in the tax return, will be populated in the tax return as of the forthcoming tax season. So if you migrate tax data for a client from DTMax to Envio Tax, and there was a historical summary in the tax file in DTMax, that information will also be populated in Envio Tax. So in my example here, we can see that the client's prior year data is basically retained in Envio Tax, and you can see that the columns are filled in with prior year data. During the previous tax years, the prior year columns in the tax return, in the review tab, or in the PDF were left empty. Starting the coming season, they will be populated. So the next big item is going to be the Tax Matters Contact feature, which is about a single family member being able to send and receive documents on behalf of other members in Client Center. So we often receive feedback that it's not productive to force every single family member to register to Client Center for document sharing purposes. But that said, obviously, we are fully aware that protecting personal and financial information is very important. We even know of cases where a family has indicated that really they don't want every single family member to have access to another member's financial documentation, etc., etc. Now, considering all that, to keep you productive while keeping things secure, we are introducing the Tax Matters feature to OnViewTax. So you may have seen the Tax Matters contact option as a relationship type in Client Center. So that basically is really just a relationship type that's set and it remains in Client Center. If you wanted to do something more, i.e. in terms of like sharing on behalf of other members, you have to do extra additional steps. So going forward, in OnViewTax, the Tax Matters contact option will do much more. So in our example here, for this given tax family, for let's say the 2022 tax year projects, you'll be able to assign, for example, the family head as the person who's going to send and receive documents on behalf of the other members by going and selecting Assign as a Tax Matters contact option. Once you do that, and then go and save a PDF, for example, so we will choose the spouse as the person that we're going to save a PDF for. So we'll open her project, and then we will navigate to the File Return tab where we can save our PDFs. And we will click the client copy, which is basically the copy that's intended for, in this case, Michelle. And it's basically what's going to be saved to the cloud. Now, because Michelle did not register to Client Center, because we're not going to force her to do that, it's going to be Derek, the family head, that's going to get the notification. And we can see that, firstly, the green banner is saying that it got saved. And then secondly, it's saying that it's not Michelle that's getting the notification, it's going to be Derek, and it's going to be Derek who's going to share that with Michelle as needed. So it's important to know that like this also applies for uploading documents. Again, here it's Derek who is registered Client Center, and they have been assigned as a Tax Matters contact, so they can just access Michelle's folder and upload stuff. And when they upload stuff, you'll be notified. Let's go back to Project Properties. In Project Properties, what's important to note here is that like all of the stuff that we talked about so far is of course doable in DT Max. What is special in OnViewTax is that in this case, it's not just the family head that can be assigned as the person who can send and receive documents on behalf of other members. The Tax Matters can be also the dependent or the spouse. So for example, we could see that it's their selectable options. So we know that in some cases, in some families, it's not necessarily the family head who is the most financially savvy or who is the most technologically savvy. So that's why other members can be selected as Tax Matters contacts as well. And last important point is about e-signature requests. So all of the stuff that we talked about applies to e-signature requests as well. It's important, however, to note that for e-signature requests, the best practice is always to encourage each family member to register to Client Center using their own unique email address. And if you do try to send an e-signature request to a Tax Matters contact, you will be reminded of that. Onview will remind you of that. However, it will not be forced. You will be able to, as in DT Max, use the Tax Matters contact feature for e-signature requests. Next, I'll get into the speed achievements from this year. First, for reference, some things load slower on the cloud compared to a desktop-based environment. This is especially true for data-heavy screens. Our goal every year is to speed things up further and further. So last year, we introduced the Sped Up Data Entry tab. This meant that unless your data entry screen was loaded with heavy data such as 40 slips or more, it meant that after the initial load, the data entry would show in a snap. So if you navigated away from that tab and you came back to it, it would just show right away and you would get to work right away. This year, we are introducing the Sped Up Review tab. Now, the Review tab is where you go to take a look at the final definitive set of error and informational messages before you file. And it's also where you go to take a look at the tax return itself. So this process of loading those messages and then navigating to the tax return up to now would have taken on average 40 seconds of load time. Going forward, it will be 3 times faster. We will not stop there, of course. We will be always bringing speed enhancements to Your Tax. And just a general comment about the enhancements that we bring in and the improvements. We bring those in even during the tax season. So in an incremental fashion, we will bring in some new changes and you will be notified. That's the round of new big changes that are slated for this coming tax season. We'll look forward to hear from you, whether you have questions about Your Tax or whether there's a feature that's important and dear to you and we did not address it in this video. Please get in touch with us for that as well. Again, we'd love to hear from you folks. Come and visit us at the booth, at the Your Tax booth, or you can just simply drop us an email. I'll give you my email on the next slide. At any rate, we'd love to help you, whether you have questions about Your Tax, whether you'd like to get registered to those ramp-up sessions in January, the hands-on ramp-up sessions, the Your Tax days, or whether you're ready to get started with Your Tax, just let us know for that as well. We'd love to help. Thank you, folks. My email is carl.bujikanyan@thomsonreuters.com. I wish you a great tax season and have a great one, folks.